So before I begin though, um, before we get into the actual content, I'd like to start by acknowledging that the traditional custodians of the land within the university's footprint areas, so that's the Awabakal, the Darkinjung, the Biripi, the Worimi, Wonnarua, and the Eora nations. And I would also really particularly like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, who are the owners and traditional custodians of the lands where I was born and raised. And I would especially like to extend this acknowledgement and to pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who might be joining us today. As far as the referencing content of today's session, what we're going to be looking at is touching on what referencing is, why it's really important, what the different referencing styles are that are used at the university. So there are a lot of them and they're sort of used for different disciplines. How do you go about finding what referencing style you need to use for your assignment? And then lastly, and the bulk of this session will actually be about the referencing resources that we have here at the University of Newcastle. And we've done some work recently on creating what are kind of quick guides. We also have our fuller referencing guides, and then I've listed here as well, contact us, because you can't forget that getting in touch with us, we are a resource, we are a referencing resource as well. So if any of this doesn't sink in and you still need support, there are ways to get in touch with us. What is referencing and why is it important? So referencing obviously is basically crediting the original author or the original owner of the work that you are using, whether you are paraphrasing it, whether you are directly quoting it. It's basically you demonstrating where you have got your ideas from. So you're not taking credit for somebody else's work. And it's really important for a few different reasons, actually. So the first is that it demonstrates to your marker that you have actually done research. You've gone out there, you've read widely, you've composed thoughts based on evidence that you have out there. The second is probably the most important part, which is that it practices academic integrity and avoids plagiarism. So as I was saying before, it's about making sure that you're not saying that that you've come up with something that isn't actually your own work. The university has very, very strict policies when it comes to plagiarism. All universities have very strict policies when it comes to plagiarism, I should say. So referencing is a really vital part of that academic integrity piece. And then lastly, which will get more important as you go through your studies. So for those of you who might be beginning your undergraduate degrees, it's probably not as important or not as evident why this is important, but what it does is it gives the original authors credit, and it can allow them to demonstrate the actual reach of their research. So as you're getting further through your degrees, and if you go off into, say, into do research or higher degree research, higher degrees, I should say, being able to see where you have been cited is really important, and it goes a long way to show just how far and impactful your research is being. The referencing styles that we have at the University of Newcastle are, as I said, many and varied. So we have APA 7, which is far and away the most common. And it's most common because it is multidisciplinary. You'll find it in pretty much all of the disciplines actually that we have here at the university. We have Chicago, both A and B, and I think that Chicago is more used in the humanities maybe, but I can never remember, to be perfectly honest. Harvard, IEEE is sort of computing and engineering, JAMA, MLA, AGLC is law, Vancouver. So these are just a list of all of the, not even all of them, because you will find that there are other smaller ones that different lecturers might use for different reasons. You know, it could be that you've got an assignment where it's like you're submitting something to a particular journal and they will have their own referencing style. So it's really hard to apply one referencing style to everything because there are just so many out there. Does it matter which you use for your assignment? Yes, absolutely, of course it does. The first thing you should be doing when you get your assignments is going in and having a look and reading them really, really thoroughly. Because if your academic specifies that it has to be APA 7 and you use Chicago A, it doesn't matter how meticulously you are with your Chicago A referencing, it's not the right referencing style, and so it will all be incorrect. Okay, sometimes academics will say, I don't care what referencing style you use, just make sure you're consistent. And if that is the case, I personally would encourage you all to be using APA 7 because it is probably the easiest and the most common of all of them out there. But that's very rare. Most of the time it will be specified in your subject outline and in your assessment tasks. Okay, I know I'm flying through this. If there are any questions, please do feel free, like I said, to put them in the chat. Going forward, the parts of the reference, I've broken it down like this because what I'm hoping we will have noticed by the end of this session is that it doesn't matter what the referencing style you're using is. They're all the same components that you're looking out for, really, and it's just about making sure that you're putting them into the right format. Okay, so the parts of the reference that we normally look for, these come down really to who, when, what, where, how. And the who is generally the author or the creator of the work. Sometimes it might be a little bit different. So for example, if it's a YouTube video, it might be who has actually who has uploaded the video, you know, the channel that it's been uploaded on. But the who is the name that is attached to this piece of work, right? When goes without saying, really, the date of its production. Keep in mind, though, that if you're using a book that has been published many, many, many times, you're referencing the book that you have there and then in your hand. So if you've got, you know, Shakespearean sonnets, but they were republished in 2010, then the date is 2010. So it's about the actual production of what you're using for your assignment. The what is the title of the work. Sometimes, depending on what you're referencing, it might be a literal what as well. So, for example, some referencing styles will ask you to put in square brackets if it's something like a pamphlet. So that's two different things, really, the title of the work and what it is. The where is again, can be a couple of different things, but it's about the publishing house, the place that it was published, or if it's something like a journal, where you've accessed that journal. So, sorry, a journal article, I should say. What journal have you accessed? Where has it been published? Like which particular journal, which volume and edition. And then lastly, the how, which doesn't always actually come up. But when it does, it's mostly around things like how can we access the thing that you are referencing. So it might be a retrieval URL, or it might be a DOI or something like that. So it varies, and it's not always a thing. So something like a published book, for example, a print copy doesn't have a how. Okay. Very quickly, these are the resources that we have that I'm going to sort of mention quickly today, and then we will go off and we will actually get into using them so that you can see how to use them for your referencing. So the first one is these new library quick guides. These are really newly developed pages that we've been working on, and they're basically just to demonstrate how to reference the most common resources that you use in your assignment. So if you think about the ones that you use for all of your assignments all of the time, websites, journal articles, books and ebooks, those really common resource types, the library quick guides are going to be really, really useful for that sort of stuff. Then we have our fuller referencing guides, and they are comprehensive. So anything that you can't find in those quick guides, there will then be a link off to the full guides, and they have indexes where you can go and have a look and see whether or not the resource that you're trying to reference is actually in there. Okay. There is EndNote support. Is a thing that the library provides. I'm going to quickly drum in though that in my opinion, EndNote's not really a referencing tool. It's more of a bibliographic management tool. And the reason that I say that is that EndNote doesn't do your referencing for you. You still need to be able to identify when there are errors in an EndNote reference. It's just not foolproof. So if you are still new to referencing, keep EndNote in the back of your mind as a tool that you might like to investigate later, but really make sure that you get your head around your referencing style first before you go off and investigate actually using EndNote for your studies. And then lastly, of course, is that you can contact us. Reach out after this if you still need help, if you're doing your assignments and you can't quite remember anything. And the two ways that I would encourage you to do that, first and foremost, are the live chat. Live chat is brilliant if you have those kind of quick questions, you can't figure something out, get on there. You can usually get a really quick answer fired back at you quite fast. But then we also have the Book a Librarian. So if you're struggling a bit more, something that's going to take a bit longer than something like live chat might permit, you can actually book 25-minute slots with a librarian, and we will sit down with you and go over whatever it is that you're having hassles with. Okay, before I actually go off now, it was really quick, and do some of the examples. Do we have any questions, Ben? How are we traveling?
No questions so far.
Splendid. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by going off to the university homepage. For those of you who aren't familiar with the library page, if you go to the Newcastle University homepage, any page will have this hamburger menu over on the right-hand side. Library sits under it. I'm going to scroll down, and particularly here under Learn, you'll see that there is this Discover Tools for Referencing Help, and this is where we're going to be working from today. These boxes here are the new referencing quick guides that I was just mentioning before. So for example, if I was to go into the APA 7 one here, you'll see that there is some, it talks about up here, there's a blurb about what APA 7 actually is. It's an author dates citation style, which means when you're citing something in the body of your text, you will include citations which look something like this. There is an author, there is a date. So you'll see there's information here about the actual in-text citations. The next tab down is about the author variations. So depending on how many authors there are, it will display, you will list the authors differently. So for example, if there are 2, then you would go the first name and then an ampersand. 3, you would have commas and ampersands. 21 plus, you might get down to ellipses. So it's all different depending on the numbers. Referencing is really, it can feel really pedantic. I get that. It's for a reason. It is to make sure that you are actually you're being consistent, it's preparing you for publishing later. So yes, it's pedantic, but just wherever you can, try and make sure that you're following the correct format, and include those commas and include those semicolons. It's really just a matter of substituting your variables for what you can see and hear. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I've got a couple of different examples up here, and I wanted to start by actually pulling them apart so that you can see what I was talking about with those different the who, what, where, when, how, etc. And making sure that you can see that no matter what the referencing style is, no matter what the resource type is, it's kind of still fundamentally the same. So this one here, I've decided is going to be APA 7. I've chosen topics that amuse me. So this one is a journal article which is called Combating Loneliness and Isolation and Promoting Good Mental Health, one ukulele at a time. For those of you who don't know me, as the ukulele tragic that I am, I often say that you can't be sad while holding a ukulele. And now somebody has actually done some research on it, which makes me really happy. So here you'll see we have the title, the authors. If we go into preview, I don't even actually really need to go into the article for the sake of referencing it today. So what I'm going to do is go back over to my who, which is the first one. If I go now, you can see here that the authors, I'm just going to grab these and copy them so that we can see that we're filling up all of the different necessary fields, okay? Don't worry about the formatting. You would never actually do this for your own assignment. This is just for demonstration today. For those of you who remember before the what was the actual title of the journal article, what the thing is that you're referencing. So I will go back and throw that in here. The where was around where it was actually referenced. So I'm going to just grab this whole thing here, even though it's got the date in there as well, which is unnecessary. I'm going to put this where here. Then we've got the when, okay. I'm going to snap that out, put that there. And then the how was about that retrieval, okay. Now, it can sometimes be that the how will be an actual URL, but we might sit on that one until we actually see what it is that APA requests from us. So if I go over here now, we're going to go journals and newspaper articles, because we were referencing a journal article, okay? These are the sort of quick ones that we have access to in this quick guide, the APA 7 quick guide for journal articles. So we have an article with a DOI, an article with no DOI, article found on the web with no DOI, or a print article. So if I go back over, you'll see down the bottom here, there was actually a DOI. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to put that in my table just so that I've got all of the information that I need. Okay, go back over here to the referencing guides. And what we're looking at is this article with the DOI. Okay, you'll see that there are, this is kind of, this example here is what it should look like, the actual format, but it's only got the one surname. There are then examples down here where you might see that it has, you know, 2 names or 3 names or whatever. So if yours has more than one author, by all means, have a look and see which one is closest to what you're actually using. But don't forget that you can also just go back up to the author variations and see what it's supposed to look like in that author variations section there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy that whole thing. I'm going to put that down here so that we are, oh, you jerk, didn't bring over the formatting, so that we can see what it's supposed to actually look like. And then I'm going to put all of my different variables in there. So the first thing that you're going to start with is the surname. comma, initial. Okay. And now this is really, really important. If you see here that we've got the initial, the full stop, or if we go back over to here and have a look at these examples, full stop, comma, it is really important to get right down to this level. Okay. So we'll go full stop, comma, ampersand, green, comma, C for Cheryl. Okay. Then the next thing we're looking at is the year, which is 2022. Okay. The next thing that we're looking at is the actual article title. So that is this here. I'm going to try pasting it without any, can I? Here we go. And you'll see that we need it to actually be in something called sentence case, which is where this first letter is capitalized, but anything, the rest of the sentence isn't unless it's a proper noun, until we get to this piece of punctuation, and then it begins again. So we've got one ukulele at a time. We're going to full stop. Then we have our journal title, which is this one here. I'm going to copy that. It is really important, though, that it is italicized. And actually, it's not sentence case, which is very tricky. Got to keep you on your toes. Mental health nursing. And then what are we looking at next? We've got our, oh, sorry, that should have been a comma, the volume, which is 31. Then we stop italicizing, go into issue 2, close brackets. And then the last thing here is, oh, I don't have the page range, excuse me. If we go back over here, it is 243 to 246. So we're going, I believe, actually, I can't remember what that should have looked like. So bear with me for a second. Yes, it's just the actual numbers. So if I go back over 243, 246. And then the last thing that we need is this DOI URL. So it does actually need to be in this particular format when it comes to displaying DOIs now for APA 7. So what we're going to do is take this here and put that there. Bear with me while I just fix the formatting because it'll drive me nuts otherwise. And that is the actual correct formatting for the reference list. The only thing that I will add is that for APA 7, you do also need to have something which is called a hanging indent. So you would go into the paragraph section, the indentation, choose the indent as hanging. And that's what that will look like. Okay, that was APA 7, and that's probably the biggest one that I'm going to demonstrate today. So were there any questions about that? Does everyone feel like they followed along with where I got all of that information from and how to actually put it into the style themselves? And can you see how?
Sorry.
That's all right.
I think that's all good.
And hopefully you can see how this actually, how we've taken it from that referencing guide. So what we'll do now is move on to another one. I'll get rid of APA 7. Don't save. And instead we're going to have a look at a Chicago one, just so that you can see that it is still exactly the same thing. So this is a book about dinosaurs, apparently, if I can get it to open. Dinosaurs. Now, I won't necessarily go all the way through actually creating these ones. It's more just about showing you that it's the same process. So if we go to Chicago A, because that's what we're looking at for this one, and it is a book. Just going to get this open and ready. And so this is what the book looks like. Chicago A is a footnote style though. So that means that when you're actually citing it throughout the piece of work that you're producing, you will include a note number. So you'll write your paragraph and then you'll include a number which relates to a footnote that you will put at the bottom of the page. And then that footnote at the bottom of the page with the number will also then correspond with a bibliography record at the end of the paper. So it's a lot more of a process, Chicago A. And thankfully, it's far less common here at the university. So if we go back over to our dinosaurs record, I'm actually going to go into the full dinosaurs record so that we can see exactly what's going on. You'll see that there is an author here, and I'm going to take that over to our author page. But if we go back, there are actually a whole list of other authors here as well. So I'm going to go back over, we'll put them under it. You'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different authors, which means we should probably have a look at our referencing page, see whether or not we need to do anything different for that number of authors. So we'll go up to where it says author variations. 4+ authors is different. It says for 4 or more authors, list all of the authors up to 10 in the bibliography. If there are more than 10, then only list the first 7 followed by et al. So we've got 6, which does actually mean that we would just list every single one of those authors. The thing to note about Chicago is that you have the first author's surname and then their first name. So for me, Clarkson, Kiley. But then everything, all of the other ones after that subsequently are their first name, last name in that order. So it's only the first one where it is that reversed surname order. Okay, so let's go back to our actual example that we had. What are we after now? What? It's a book and it's called Dinosaurs. I don't need to copy that. Where? So where was it actually published? It was published. We're not looking at this originally where it was first published. We're talking about what we have our hands on there and then, what we're referencing. And we're referencing the New York, something that was published in New York by Scholastic Reference. So go back over where New York Scholastic Reference. We go when. So when was it actually published? Again, it was originally published in 1991, but it looks like this one is 2005. So we're going to go 2005 for this one. 2005. And then how. Now, as I said, because this is a print version, we actually don't need the how at all. We don't need a retrieval URL. We don't need any of that. So we're fine with just that information. If we were to then go over and grab the actual reference, and I'm not going to put it all in here in the same way today. So this, let's just go the bibliography reference, for example. We'll put that over here. What that would look like is listing those surnames in that way that I showed you before, which is the first author surname, initial. We've got the surname and the initial. Perhaps I was talking about the footnotes before, excuse me, because you'll notice that it's different depending on whether you've got the footnotes. So the footnote here is the surname. That isn't, oh no, here we are. It's the bibliography. Okay, I think there is actually an error in this one. So apologies for that. We'll sort it out. Let's have a look at this one instead. We'll go over here and instead work off this. So you would have the surname of this first one and then the Gallimard, And then the rest would be listed in that way from before, but in the true naming fashion. So Claude Delafosse, James Prunier, that whole full list. Then you would have the italicized name of the book, which is Dinosaurs. You would have where it was published, which is New York, New York, presumably. You would have the name of the publishing house, which is Scholastic Reference, and the year that it was published, which is 2005. Okay. Any questions about that? No. Splendid. Okay. Then the last one that I want to show you is what to do if you're coming across one that just doesn't actually fit these kind of these common resource types that we're looking at. And I love this. So I went looking for something that was a little bit strange because I wanted it to not be a normal resource type. And I found this thing which is called the toilet tank aquarium. It's actually a patent. You'll see here what it is it's exactly what it says it is. It's somebody has designed an aquarium that sits around your cistern so that you can have a toilet tank that has an aquarium built into it. The most absurd thing to patent, but somebody has done it. Now, there could be a time when you would need to actually be using patents for your assignments. And obviously that's less common than something like a journal article or a book or a thesis. So these quick guides are not necessarily going to keep them quick, we don't have all of the different resources in there. So what one are we looking at today? It was Vancouver. So if we have a look at the Vancouver list, you'll see patents aren't actually listed anywhere in here. You're not going to be able to find it. And so for something like this, we're going to instead go off to the Vancouver full guide. Okay, so you'll see here it says examples using many other resource types can also be found in our full Vancouver guide. And we've linked directly off to the index page of these guides so that you can see all of the different resource types that are on here, and you can find the one that you're looking for and go straight to it. So I want to go straight to a patent. I should also say there's lots of information in here about the actual referencing styles and stuff. So when you're first getting started, if you want to have a look at some example reference lists and stuff like that, these are a great place to go to actually see good referencing as well. But this is what we've got for a patent. So you'll see we've got our inventor. This citation number refers to, so Vancouver is again, a slightly different style in that it's not footnotes, it's not in texts, it is an in-text citation style, but instead of having author date, what it will have is a number. So you'll write your sentence and whatever you're referencing, you'll put the number 1, for example, and that number 1 will then relate to a corresponding reference list entry that has the number 1 as well. Okay, so if we have a look, we need the inventor or inventors, the assignee. Now, not every patent actually has an assignee. An assignee it can sometimes be like a business, or if somebody has hired somebody to invent something. So it is very unlikely that the toilet tank aquarium has an assignee. In fact, I happen to know it doesn't. The title of the patent, the country the patent's from, the patent number, and the date it's issued. So again, if we go back over to this who, what, where, when, how kind of thing, what we're looking at is the who, which relates to this fellow whose name is Herbert de Moray. So I'm just going to grab his name and put it over here. The what is the toilet tank aquarium, which is exactly what the name of the patent actually is. The where, it was a United States patent. You can see here at the top. So United States. The when, for a patent, you need as much detail as you can grab. So it is this November 16, 1999. And then the how would probably be something along the lines of how you would go about retrieving it. I might just use it to grab this patent number because I know that the patent number is an important part of the patent citation, I should say. So how, that's what I'll use. And if we go over to the actual resource, the reference, I should say, we're going to grab that here. And hopefully we can all see that we can take this and pretty much just substitute all of these straight in. So I'm just going to double check what the way that they display the names. So it's a surname and the first initial. So for us, that would be Demore, Herbert. We want, there's no assignee, so it's the Toilet Tank Aquarium. The patent country is United States. Let's have a look at what it actually looks like for an example. So it's United States, patent US here. So we're going to go United States, patent US with the patent number. And then we're going to go full stop and the actual date that it was issued. Now, it is also important to make sure that you have the right formatting for the date. So we've got year, shortened month, and then day. Let's go 1999, shortened month is November 16. And then the only other thing that I will do, because I'm pedantic, is that I will put all of this in the same format. And that should be, if I have not capitalized patent, I haven't, that should be true Vancouver referencing style for a patent. How'd we go? Are there any questions about any of that?
All quiet.
Oh my God, crickets. That's great. Well, that's actually all that I wanted to show everybody. So the last thing that I will get into is just to remind you all, if we go back over to our library page, let's go to library, how to get in touch with us. So we have, as I said before, we have Book a Librarian if you want to book 25-minute sit down with the librarians. We have our chat where you can ask quick questions and get quick answers. Of course, you can come into campus as well, and we're happy to help you here on site. But the Book a Librarians are available face-to-face on site or via Zoom as well. And that's all that I was going to cover today. So I'm going to stop sharing. Turn my camera back on, not mute myself. And if there's nothing that anybody wanted to add, then I think that we're done for the session. So thank you all for coming along despite what was a slightly hiccupy kind of beginning to the session. As we said, it's been recorded, so we'll be happy to send it out to everybody afterwards. And that's it. So enjoy your day. We'll leave you to it.
Thanks,
Bye
Kylie.
all.